Okay, here we are with our monthly review of the real estate numbers. So again, as always, with Brenna Harper and Land Title. Thankfully, Land Title does a lot of the research, pulling the data so that we can really review, analyze, and take a look at what the numbers are. So, Brenna, for those that don't know you, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brenna Harper. I am a sales rep at Land Title Guarantee Company. My territory, if you will, is Lodo and Highlands, but work with Matt, obviously, kind of fond of him. So we do this monthly report on the greater Metro Denver statistics, but then we also kind of talk about some different areas and different ways to get data in a closer look. But right now we'll just be talking about greater Metro Denver on the whole. So some of that is a good, and some of it can be a little bit deceiving if you're looking at it from a specific county. Like, that's not what's happening. Get with Matt, get with me, and talk about it, because we have a lot of different data that we can really dive into your specific neighborhood. But for this purpose, just Denver Metro on the whole, kind of the temperature of what's going on in the market.
Yeah, 30,000 foot view for sure as to what's happening in the Denver metro area. So, for individuals that want hyper local data, whether that's your city specifically, your neighborhood specifically, or even better, what your house is worth, right? Reach out and we can definitely put that information together. So, as we're coming up here to the Christmas season, we're definitely in it. I know Christmas music's been playing at our house. What are you looking forward to the most here, B, for Christmas as it's coming up?
I think our son's 18 months old. Last year he was, 7 months old. So I think he's going to be a little bit more excited about opening gifts, and we're going to a light show tomorrow night. So just kind of experiencing Christmas through a child's eyes. So some of that I'm excited about.
Yeah, I think you had found two different light shows, one at Waterworld and the other one at Bandimere, right?
Vandermeer, yeah, and we've had a lot of friends go, and I think it's been going on before this year, but I think it's the perfect social distancing way, because you're in your car and tune into the radio. So definitely check that out. I've heard great things about it. We're excited to go and stay warm and toasty in our car, but still get to see the lights.
Yeah, yeah, definitely looking forward to it for sure. So, um, as we talk about the highlights, Brenna, what stood out to you as you reviewed the numbers?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and move over to my presentation if you want to share my screen. Um, I think we've been talking about active inventory for months, but it is so, so low. So we are at 3,300 active listings for detached and attached in Denver Metro, which in a lot of places is like 2 weeks of inventory. The National Association of Realtors says 6 months is a balanced market. In Denver, a lot of economists say closer to 3 or 4 months, but weeks is definitely not close to balance. So it's a pretty incredible that it still continues to go down, and there's just really a surplus of demand at this point, which is keeping these numbers pretty incredible. And obviously it's a very competitive market out there. And with that, so our sold units, or the number of homes that were sold in the month of November, was down 2%. Down 2% year over year, down 19% month over month. So that's a pretty decent downturn, but we are still seeing multiple offers. We're still seeing it going way above asking. And that does indicate a little bit of a slowdown, but I think, like I said, with that surplus of demand, there's still so many more people than there are houses, as far as the ratio that we want. But we are hoping, and I'll show you in the graph that we always go over, that those solds pendings or under contracts has also ticked down a little bit. So, we talk about this slowing in the market, but that's really a relative term. Yes, it is slowing compared to October, but it's still not slow, and it still doesn't feel calm, but it's slower. So, talking about relative, I think, we talk about, oh, well, I'm just going to wait for the homes to come down in price or be more affordable. Well, our average sold price month over month went down 2% to $601,000 for Denver Metro. But in detached single family homes, we're up over $79,000 year over year. So that's really incredible and crazy. And I think this year has just been an anomaly. We've said that before. Interest rates are incredibly low, so your money is going further. But I think that you really need to be having conversations with your agent and with your lender about different programs, because trying to pinch your pennies and save it's going to be really, really hard to outsave the market when we're having almost $80,000 in appreciation.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a client recently about whether or not they should wait a year or go ahead and move. And it was, well, if the market does what it has been doing, what might this look like 12 months from now? Can you save $80,000 over the next 12 months? Or would it make sense to just pull the trigger and do it now? Now, that's one scenario, that's one aspect. It's not the only decision that people factor in when it comes to buying a home, but definitely still a very good time to buy. Just interesting to see where we were at this time 12 months ago.
Yeah. And I think another thing to consider is, and we've talked about it before, but even if homes were to stop appreciating, which in the last decade, we have appreciated above the national average almost every year, and at least in the last 7 years, to be sure. But even if we didn't appreciate at all and interest rates go up, then you're still going to get less home, even though the price tag is the same. So like Matt said, there's definitely more factors than just the price. But you also really have to consider what's going on the lending side. There's some people that are saying they think interest rates are going to stay low for another year, but no one knows for sure. We have new administration coming in. That's an unknown of what's exactly going to happen. So sometimes it feels really scary for the buyers right now. It's definitely intense, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad deal, and that it's not a good time to buy. So, just talking about relativity, and yes, we're seeing all of these crazy, crazy numbers, but we're also continuing to see them. So, get on the train now, because it might only speed up in one way or another.
Yeah, for sure. And it's waiting to time the market's a tough piece, because you only know that you were at the peak after it's gone. You only know that you were at the bottom after it's gone. So, and for most people, while real estate is a good investment, it's still a place to live. So they don't operate the same way as a traditional investment, investing into a 401k, a mutual fund, a stock, or whatnot. So, there's other factors that come in as to whether or not the timing is right and makes sense for somebody to buy a home, right?
Yep. And, we've talked about it before. There's different areas, different counties, price points that are moving quicker than others. This is just kind of a quick snapshot, but Elbert, Adams, and Jefferson County are moving the quickest, with 16, 17, and 18 days, average days in MLS. So that's very, very quick. And then under that 400,000 price point, which is just because, obviously there's a lot of people looking in that price point, but also there's not a lot of inventory in that price point. So that is one of the more competitive places to be buying. So if you're under 400,000 in Jefferson County, that's tough. So just get ready for that. So just something to consider. And then, also very interesting that we are still, compared to 2019, all things considered, even not being able to do showings for almost a month and all of these extra things that we have to do in order to buy or sell a home, we're still up 6.5% in sold units. So that shows me that the Denver market is still strong, in spite of 2020.
Yeah, I think we have overall a very healthy market in what's going on in our real estate market. Now, again, that's the real estate market itself. That's not all industries yet. It is a relief to see that we are not seeing the same kind of things that we saw that led to the housing correction 12 years ago.
Yeah, and a big difference there was they had a surplus of inventory and we have a surplus of demand. So that is a big factor in, how where we are is so different. And not saying that it couldn't happen under different circumstances, but when people talk about that, that's definitely something to keep in mind, is where inventory levels were back then and where they are now.
Yeah, the demand, back then had started to wane, yet the inventory was climbing and the prices were climbing. Again, that's economics 101, supply and demand. That is one of the indicators that led to the housing correction that we saw then. We're just not seeing the same thing this time. We're seeing appreciation, we're seeing growth, we're seeing a lot of positive things happening.
Yep. Okay, so this is when we look at every month as well. This is showing time. So this shows you how many showings were happening. The blue line is 2019. The orange line is 2020. So for the most part, with the exception of our COVID crater, we're pretty darn close. We're actually just a little bit above, which makes sense with where our numbers have been, but all of the trends are following. So if you see kind of at the end of our screen here, that little dip, that's Thanksgiving weekend. So that makes sense. A lot of times when there's a holiday weekend or even like Mother's Day, Father's Day, that kind of thing, 4th of July, people want to be with their families, even if it was in smaller groups this year, and they're not necessarily going out to look at homes. So you see that reflected here.
And you would anticipate to see something very similar for the week of Christmas and the week of New Year's. In fact, it just did some research for a client hyper specific to their neighborhood as to did it make sense to list the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's or wait until after the first of the year. And it was amazing the jump in showings once we got to January 1st versus the previous 2 weeks.
Yep. It does make a difference. And I've said this before, but Matt and I even made this mistake when we were listing our home. We listed it Easter weekend, and we did not have nearly the showings that we anticipated until Monday. And we still got it under contract and we were still happy with it, but it was definitely a decrease in traffic to the previous weekend, and I believe even afterwards. So just something to consider if you're looking to get that top dollar, or in my case, being pregnant, I was like, then, not now, I want people in my house for the shortest amount of days possible. So if that's a 1 weekend or 2 weekends, whatever that looks like, just something to consider.
Well, and our multiple offers did come through. They just came through on Monday instead of Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
So again, just interesting timing as we reflect back on those days for future indicators as to what it looks like. So if you're a buyer in the market, the next several weeks might be prime opportunity because most buyers are going to take the time off. Most real estate agents are going to take the time off.
Yep, absolutely. We definitely see a slowdown just in how many people are working, I think in all industries, but especially in real estate, pretty much maybe in the next week or so through the end of the year. So like Matt said, if you're looking in some of those really hot counties or price points, this might just be the perfect time for you to take another look. Yeah. Okay, so this is the market snapshot that we look at every month. Active is green, pending is blue, and sold is red. So as I mentioned, our pending and our solds have gone down. Solds were kind of plateauing for the last couple of months, and then you'll see from October to November, they took that 19% decrease. Pendings have been tracking down. So and again, pending is more of a leading indicator, so we would expect solds to follow that. Because that makes sense. If it's under contract, hopefully it gets to sold. So we expect that to continue to slow down. But the thing about it is it's not feeling less chaotic because actives are also going down. If actives were plateauing more and we were seeing that slowdown in solds, then it would feel a little bit more stable as far as on the buy side. But because actives are still coming down, we still don't have enough homes for the people looking, even if there's less people looking.
Yeah, it looks like the sold and the under contract are really still chasing actives down, which you don't see as you look at the trend line and the history line of that. You don't see very many months where the actives are below the under contracts and the sold. And we've seen that for a significant portion of this year.
Yeah, and that's really the big difference. If you look at the trend lines here, active, we always see that cyclical, seasonal kind of wave, and we see it with active pending and sold. And even though 2020 looks a little bit different, the, under contract or pending is above solds, and the difference is that active. So that's what makes it feel very dramatic this year. Obviously, we have some steep ridges there with some COVID things, but for the most part, that is the big change in this year and why it feels so different.
When I was really, really amazed by the next slide, if you want to slide down to that one, for the detached single family homes specifically, because wow, what a gap. That's been just a big challenge for the buy side. And, if you're on the listing side of it, it's kind of, gosh, let me know when they've given me enough money kind of a scenario. But you could just see the massive gap and the low inventory there for the detached single family homes.
Yeah, 1,600 detached homes in all of Denver Metro. That's insane.
It's not a lot to choose from, right?
No.
Because some of those are going to be out of a person's price point. Some of them are going to be in an area that they don't want to be in. Some of them are going to be in the wrong conditions. So when we look at all the factors somebody's looking at for buying a home, we may have a handful of options to choose from, and you may not like all of them.
Yep. It's interesting because the sellers are wanting to get under contract in hours. So for them, the speed is incredibly quick. But on the flip side of that, the buyers only have maybe one home to look at every few days. So they have to be really patient. So it's very different on each side of that coin.
Yeah, without a doubt. And again, it's being strategic just in how you approach the market, depending on what side you're on and what you're looking for.
So this is something we touched on a little bit last month and want to just touch on it again, but this is active inventory. So you can see that this is attached single family. You'll see that the active inventory looks way different on this slide than it did on the other slide, because attached single family is really kind of doing something different. We have, I would not say by any means a surplus of inventory, but we have a lot more comparatively to the detached market. So it's not quite as fast and furious. But with that, we've had a lot of people, if you're just looking at that 30,000 foot view and you see the actives way down here and you go to list your attached home in downtown Denver, you might be in for a rude awakening because there is comparatively, again speaking, there's a buildup of inventory of attached homes in especially Denver County.
Yeah, it feels very different when we're looking at attached homes versus the detached homes, and that graph really kind of indicates just how dramatic that difference is.
Yep, and we've talked about it before, but we've seen a flight to the suburbs, and also people just wanting a little bit more space. So, and I mean, we anticipate that this will bounce back because obviously downtown Denver is very desirable. But right now we've seen a lot of people choose to move out of the city into single family homes with maybe a bigger garage or grass or just more space to, have a conference call in one room instead of all being in the kitchen or into the dining room. So I think some of what we're going through in 2020 and just how we're living our lives right now is definitely being reflected in this attached market.
Well, I think you're going to see it as well with the type of homes builders choose to build. The type of things that home buyers are going to start looking for is, is there a space to homeschool? Because some people are going to make the decision never to send their kids back to the public school or the private school. They want to do the homeschooling. Some people are going to be the complete opposite of that. Some people are going to get the opportunity to work from home and stay working from home. So the type of homes that we may see moving forward, it'll be interesting to see the new trends, in the housing. Uh, but yeah, if you're, used to being in a small condo in downtown and all of a sudden you're locked in with your family, you may want some more space. You may want, your own private she shed, your own private man cave, space for the kids to go be kids or do whatever it is that they want to do.
Yep, we've actually seen a little bit more inventory in the mother-in-law suite space. So some of the builders have done it for a while where it's basically a home with a separate apartment, so attached. But we're seeing more of those come onto the market, and either multi-generational living or just additional space for kids coming back from college, or just another spot as a home office or whatever people are using that for. So we're already seeing a little bit of adjustment and adaptation with how things are going right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what somebody's needs look like, it's going to dictate a lot of what the housing houses look like.
Yeah. So this is month supply of inventory. As we mentioned here in Denver, we'd need about 4 months of inventory to feel more balanced. And as you can see for November, we're at 0.69 of a month. And I'll show you here in a minute a different slide that breaks it down into county. So this is Greater Metro Denver on the whole. We're at 0.69, and you can see that even seasonally that's incredibly low, and we're feeling that.
Yeah. Yeah, just same old story, right? Just different day. It's not a
Yep.
lot of inventory. Still, the demand is high, and high demand ultimately tells me that people feel secure in their jobs to want to be moving into a new home. There's still enough people that are earning an income to be thinking about making a purchase of $3, 4, 5, $800,000 or whatever their purchase might be.
So this breaks that month supply of inventory down into price point. So you can see that in the most competitive price points for that month supply of inventory, or where things are the tightest, are between the 300 to 600, with basically under or right at about 2 weeks. But I mean, even in up until the ultra luxury, we're not balanced. Up above 2 million, we're pretty darn close there. But even in the 1 to 2 million, we're still below that balanced mark. So it's we need more homes, but people are cautious about listing their homes, because of COVID and because of those restrictions, and also because there is such a shortage. The question is, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, for those that are nervous about the coronavirus and COVID and showing their homes, we have the technology. We can do this almost entirely remote. And even to the point where we have some sellers that are not allowing physically anybody into the home as far as showings. We can do with 3D tours, kind of walkthrough tours. It's like a video game. You can turn left, right, up, down, and just look all around. There's ways to do it. So if you're in a position where you need to sell, or you've outgrown the space that you're in, or you want a smaller space, whatever that looks like, we can make it happen based on your concerns or your preference to do this almost entirely virtual.
Yeah, it's been pretty incredible, the adaptation that the industry has been through this year. As far as on the title side, we're able to do a lot more e-signatures and virtual closings, and we've been pushing for some of this legislation for years, and now it's actually going to happen. Hopefully forever. Right now, it's still a temporary order, but because it was just an ultimate necessity. So there have been some good things for the industry that have come out of it, and just some ways to do business if you're in Japan or if you're in downtown Denver. So that's been pretty cool.
Well, it's amazing to know that your company, very much like my company, is on the forefront of technology for pushing, and not just pushing technology to push technology, but to push the right technology to do it correctly and to do it safely. So that we are leading our industries in technology, and that's been awesome to see from Land Title as well as my company with Keller Williams.
Well, yeah, thank you. Land Title has invested a lot of time and resources into making sure that we have great systems that are effective and secure. So it's been fun to watch that and continue to see what they're going to come up with next.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. So as we wrap this up, any final closing thoughts about end of the year, about the real estate market?
I think Denver and Colorado, I think we're resilient, and it's been a really tough year for a lot of people. But maybe getting into a new home for Christmas would be the cherry on top, or just seeing how much equity you have in your home can be that bright spot. So I think looking at the silver linings instead of all of the negative that's so easy to focus on is something that I'm really trying to do this holiday season and would encourage you all to do too.
Yeah. Yeah, find the positive. And right now, there's a lot of positive things happening with our real estate market. It's not an easy market, but still a lot of things to be positive about. So, well, excellent. Well, I'm excited for next month as we do this, because next month we'll kind of get a chance to recap what 2020 really looked like as a whole. As we round out the final numbers here from December. So, again, thank you everybody for tuning in. We really appreciate your questions. As you guys post those too. So, again, thanks so much, Brenna. I appreciate your time for helping us with kind of analyzing what the real estate market's doing.
Well, happy to be here, and Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to everyone. And we'll see you after the new year.
All right. Have a Merry Christmas, y'all.